Hey y'all, welcome. It's another episode of That's How You're Feeling, and I'm your host, Miss Shany G, if you nasty. And I'm super excited because I have two really amazing people here today. One of my favorite people in the world, Devon, and then one of my other favorite people in the world, Lavender. Super excited to have you both here today. So, today we're gonna get into a really heavy topic. It's breaking generational curses. Yes, the proverbial boogeyman that's in all of our families, especially if you come from an equity denied community, black, indigenous, queer. We've got it, intergenerational trauma. But that being said, we're breaking those curses, and I'm super excited to talk about it today with the both of you. But my first real kind of question is like, what does breaking generational curses actually mean to you when you think about it? Is it getting rid of the Microsoft Teams sound that's bumping up for Devin? What is it? What is breaking generational curses? For me, it is getting rid of that. That means I'm not working anymore. I've broken the
Absolutely.
generational curse of having to work myself into the ground. But
Absolutely.
yeah, what does that mean for y'all? Like, what does breaking generational curses mean to you?
For me, that means honestly having self-awareness as a parent, as a elder in your community, as somebody that is providing guidance to others, thinking about the things that made you feel invalidated and making sure not to expose other people to that, I think is the biggest thing because I think validation and acceptance is at the core and base of what everyone wants and needs in order to be a good person or at least a person that is not going to traumatize other people. So I think just knowing yourself and trying to be better than the people that were the ones that hurt you. That's really it.
100%. Yeah, that self-awareness is super important. What about you, Devin?
Yeah, the self-awareness is like the key for yourself. Um, Figuring out that whatever whatever the triggers are in your when you're in your younger years, because a lot of the time you don't realize what's going on until you're older, and you get to know your family like lore more. Also, for the record, it was my outlook. No, I don't have teams. I'm on maternity leave. Um, so um but yeah, it's really like identifying the root of whatever it is in your family that is causing all of these horrible things to have happened to you in your past, and understanding that that's why you are how you are today. Your parents are how they were, your family is how they were, and on and being able to consciously like monitor yourself and self-correct when you are noticing that you are falling into patterns that are destructive and toxic to your family and to other people.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
No, 100%. I definitely agree. Yeah. I think like breaking generational curses is something that I didn't realize that I was doing, so I didn't know what it meant. It like I really did not know what it meant until I started like noticing the patterns and I was like, "Oh, I broke that or I stopped that." Like I think that for me, the self-awareness piece and like being aware is probably one of the hardest things because sometimes you don't even know that you're replicating generational curses. Like you don't even know that you are
Yes.
causing harm. And then all of a sudden it takes like that one conversation for you to be like, "Oh, shoot." Like I literally was just realized the other day I was having a conversation with my wife and I was like, I realized one of the generational curses in my like family, specifically like from my dad's line, was like the need to be picked. Like the need for someone to say like, I choose you and I choose you over everything else. And it's like it's something that I see very much so in my father and something that I've just recognized in my grandmother. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that's been in me for a while. And so like I don't know, like what was figuring out y'all's like what was the realization for you? Was there a moment where you were like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that right there, that's something that the family's doing and I have to break." Was there any like moments for y'all? Because like that for me was like my most recent awakening. There's plenty others though.
Hmm.
I think like mine came more as I was like growing older and realizing that like my, I guess, generational curse stems is like deeply rooted in the Indian day school system.
Mm.
Like my dad and his siblings and like our family for a couple generations went to those schools where it's like residential school, but they stayed within their own community. So while they got to stay home, they still suffered a lot of the same abuse that happened in residential schools. So pretty much anything that you hear happened at residential school, it happened at day school as well, like sexual, physical, mental abuse, uh, teaching them that they were wrong for being born Indigenous. And so uh, for me, like I knew what those things were when I was little because my dad kind of talked about them. I knew that there were these, I knew that nuns were really a triggered thing for my father, which was um, especially interesting when I was in high school because I ended up, I was in high school in Japan and I went to a Catholic school where it was a bunch of nuns on campus. So that was one of those things that my dad really didn't love. But so for a long time I didn't, I guess, understand why people in my family were the way they were, why my grandma on my dad's side, my Mimi, she was really cold, why we didn't really get to, after my grandparents passed away, we didn't really go back and all these things. And it just kind of, why the negativity surrounding our community and all those things. And it was just like growing older and kind of finding out more people, because it was one of those things that people didn't really ever talk about
Mm-hmm.
when I was like when I was a teenager and then going into my early adulthood. It was one of those things that I didn't really know a lot of other people's families went through, and I'd never really heard of any other communities that had them. So I it was kind of an isolation thing where I was, where I didn't also understand really what he had gone through in those schools. We knew it wasn't great, but we didn't know to the extent of what it wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of as I've grown older and kind of learned more about those things, just really understanding that, oh, this is why my family was the way that they were. Oh, this is why my grandma was the way that she was. Like, oh, they never learned, it's a lot of parents not being able to parent their children
Mm-hmm.
because they were told, that the way that they were was evil and bad. So when you're brought up that way and you're taught by these people that you're bad, even when you have children, you're going to pass it on to your children. And that's why a lot of the language and culture loss happened so intensely in that generation of like my father and the generation above me. So yeah, it was kind of a longer
Mm-hmm.
road to learning why people were the way that they were and why I was the way that I was. So yeah, it was a long road, but it was just like bits and pieces every so often, and it kind of all really came together.
Yeah, learning that history is so important because I think oftentimes like we think people in our family like you are just the way that you are, right? And it's like once you understand the things that built up to that, not just them but like your grandparents and generations before that, it's like okay, now I see why you are the way that you are. What about you, Lavender?
For me, I kind of, I'm not gonna lie, kind of learned and like knew that my family was off at a very young age. So growing up, I was always kind of trying to challenge what I thought or what I was taught because I just kind of had a feeling like these people aren't making much sense.
Mm.
But when I got into my first, I would say, like serious, where is this going, move across the country relationship, and one day, about two years in, we were arguing, and I had a flashback to my parents arguing. And
Mm.
I was saying the exact same things that my mother was saying and my ex was saying the exact same things that my father
Mm.
would say in response. And I was like, oh, hell no. Um, it was like a record scratch for me.
Mhm.
And the relationship ended pretty like a year after that, and I got into therapy, had some diagnosis, you know, given to me, and
Mhm.
from there I just started to really look at everything that I had experienced in life and how that framed and shaped the way that I looked at things.
Mhm.
um I have always wanted to kind of like learn more about what makes people people, and like
Mhm.
what brings us to these points where we have our strong values and why we have them. And for me, a lot of that was looking at the things that my mother did and said,
Mhm.
and really, I guess, taking her outside of that idea of like just a bad mom and thinking about what happened to her.
Mhm.
And I remember there was one day when I was probably like 13, and me and my mom were having a argument, something, you know, probably way more blown out of proportion than it needed to be. And
Mhm.
at the end of it, I guess we were just kind of looking at each other. And my mother said to me, "You're looking at me the way I used to look at my mom."
Mhm.
And she was like, "And I don't like that."
Mhm.
Mhm.
And me being very smart mouth 13-year-old, I said, "Well, then are you doing the same things to me that she was doing to you, maybe?" And that to me, thinking back on that, that makes me think that at one point, obviously, my mother was a 13-year-old being feeling oppressed by her family. I can, when I think about her life, being
Mhm.
one of six, middle child, second daughter, raising your younger siblings. You don't really have a life of your own, an identity of your own. I know my mother liked to live vicariously through me. And every time I did not do or make a decision or, you know, have a hobby she liked or something like that, she felt as if I was literally betraying her because I was her second chance at having her own life, which
Mhm.
is kind of crazy when you think about it. But thinking about things that way and knowing that the things that led to my mother probably having those feelings and making me feel the way that I feel, you know, as she
Mhm.
went through being a mother, um, I do know now the things that I would need to do to circumvent affecting my own children in that sense,
Mhm.
or any child that I am around in that regard. Um, and that's honestly the respect of autonomy.
Mhm.
I remember that was something that was big for me growing up that I didn't have. And I didn't realize until I became an adult, moved out, lived on my own, and things like that, how much being able to express yourself the way you want to, even if it's just the way you interact with the world, is so integral to how you will go about your life as an adult. And having that, even just being able to experience and go places and walk around and be loud in my own space, brings so much more peace to life. And I feel like that is something that you have to have in order to break a generational curse, is to
Mhm.
have peace in your life.
100%. No, I definitely agree with you on that peace thing. And I love how you're talking about that, like living vicariously through you, because I feel like that's something that I deal with my grandmother. And I also think, like, as someone who's, my dad was like in and out of my life. And I felt like it was very easy for me to hone in on the generational curses from my dad's side of the family, that I almost was like had blinders on to my mom. Like I was
Yeah.
so, I think it's so easy when you have one parent that's like
Yes.
drastically different than the other parent. When you have one parent that's like filled with a lot of trauma and a lot of harm, it's so easy to like hone in on those generational curses and be like, okay, these are the ones that I have to break, that you don't even like
Yep.
fully recognize the other ones that might be there. And for me, it was like when it came to my mom and my mom's side of the family, it was like because my mom was the parent that seemed to have it together, I didn't really think about some of the harm that had happened in her life and caused so much trauma in her life, and my grandma, and like, going further back, like my grandma, her mom passed away when she was 5 years old. She went to the hospital for a routine check and never came home. And so that was really hard on my grandma. My grandfather grew up on the farm with his, Métis father, who unfortunately was dealing with alcoholism and was very abusive to his mother. And so, like, I remember one time my grandma saying to me that my great grandpa only said to her one time that he was proud of her. And I'm like, what does that then put into a child, and then how they then grow up with their like with how she is with my mom. And so that caused a lot of like drama and trauma and harm between my mom and my grandmother. And it's so interesting. Like I remember my mom, like, and it's funny, I'm gonna have my mom on here too. We're gonna have a talk about it. But like my mom was really upset when my grandmother moved her to the middle of nowhere. And I remember my mom moved me at 15 to like a city
Mm.
outside of Toronto, Barrie, Ontario. It's 45 minutes away. But if you had have asked me, I would have told you my mother moved me to the middle of nowhere, and there was no society in life. And I was like, how could you do to me what your mother did to you? And it was like, and when it's funny now when I talk to my mom about it, I'm like, yeah, mom, like I recognize that you were doing what you thought was best for us. But when it comes to her mother, she can't see that. It's like the trauma is still there for
Yeah.
her and she can't get past it. And so, like, how do y'all feel? Also, super excited. Ashley's gonna join us just now. Is gonna join the conversation.
Yay.
Yay. But I want to ask, like, as Ashley's joining, I want to ask the two of you, like, how has it been, like, trying to break generational curses from family members that refuse to either refuse or can't see the generational curses themselves? Have y'all dealt with that at all? Has that been a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, I am not in contact with any of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, breaking the generational curse was estranging myself. Um, there is kind of like a part of me that at one point I had to just be like, okay, these people, I try to reason with them. I've tried my whole life to talk to them, express myself, and I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
They are not listening. They are not hearing me. They don't want to hear me. And eventually, I just realized that I was better off without them.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot raise children and have my family be in their life and know that they will not or get the things that they need or be raised in a way that I think is correct and
Mm-hmm.
given the love and care that I would want my kids to have. Um, I can't trust my family to do that. I can't trust my family with my own feelings. I would never trust them with a child's.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was what I feel is going to be the biggest way for me to break a generational curse is to not expose anyone that comes from me to what I was exposed to. And that's, I feel like, the only way to also protect myself moving forward as I try to navigate life healthily. It was a hard decision to make. Um, and it sucks most days, not gonna lie, especially now that it's getting, twilight weather out. You're supposed to be with your family planning stuff, and I've been estranged from my family since like 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets easier when I really put into perspective that even if I was there, I would still be feeling the really unhappy, um not healthy feelings that I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling. So sometimes you have to just kind of make that hard decision and hope that the future you build for yourself alone is going to be more fulfilling and full of love. So that was the only way I felt that I could.
And I feel that so much, like as someone who's not I don't speak to certain family members right now, and it's really because it's like I've recognized that I'm on a healing journey that you're not on. And like if I want to break this generational curse, I can't continue having you reinstill it into me every single time that I speak to you because it's getting to the point now where it's like I'm starting to regress. And like
Yep.
that is not where I'm trying to be. That is not something that I want to do. I'm in a relationship. I'm trying to be healthy, not just for myself, but for my
Mm-hmm.
partner. And so it's like I can't allow you to come in and not only disrupt my life, but disrupt my partner's life, disrupt the family that we're building. And
Yep.
it's really hard. And I think, yeah, when you have family members, like I will say, even though my mom is still a little hard with seeing that, my mom is like willing to work on breaking certain generational curses, and she's willing to have hard conversations even when it's uncomfortable for her. And I found that I haven't been able to do that with other family members, and so it really is about gauging like, okay, and that doesn't mean that those family members have to be out of my life for my rest of my
Yep.
life, but I can't have you in my life until we're in a good place and in a good way. And I remember my uncle who passed away when I was 14, he wasn't talking to my dad's side of the family. Like he's my dad's brother. He wasn't talking to anybody but me and my younger sibling. And I remember not being able to understand it. And it shaped when he passed, and I watched how devastated my family was. And I was like, I would never do that to my family. Like I will never, like it had traumatized me so bad that I was like, I will do whatever I can to hold on to my family. And now that I'm at a point where I'm not talking to certain family members, I'm like, oh, I get it. You
Yeah.
had to protect yourself first. I also want to welcome Ashleigh into the space. Hello, hello, my love. So right now we're just talking about what it's like trying to deal with family members that either won't recognize or can't recognize their generational curses that they're trying to break. So I don't know if you want to jump in and share your own perspective, or if Devon you want to share, and then Ashleigh you can share after. It's totally up to y'all. But yeah, it's a hard thing.
Well, I think it's so like it's an interesting conversation we're having because I have the complete opposite
Mm,
experience where as you know, Shanice, I am very close with my parents
mm-hmm,
now. So when I was a teenager, very not close with my parents. When I was in my early 20s, that's in university, and I was really like figuring out what was going on with me because that's when leave after I left home to go to university, that's when everything kind of started to explode for me, and I had all these things happen to me in university, and I like became this person that I didn't know.
mm,
And so I was going through therapy after that for a while, and I was having a weird relationship with my parents where sometimes I would talk to them and sometimes I wouldn't, and sometimes I would, and I was in therapy during all of this, and I would tell the therapist about all this stuff and how I was, sometimes talking to them, sometimes not. And she finally one day, after like seeing her for about a year, was just like, you need to make a decision on what you want to do about talking to your parents because you, like, especially my dad, um she was like, you really need to figure out whether you want that him in your life.
mm.
And you have to also, when you make that decision, you have to understand that he is not going to understand, and he may never admit to how your to what happened to in your childhood within your family. And you have to either live with that or you don't. And so that was a really big thing for me, was thinking about how, like, do I want to continue having this person in my life? Do I want to work on this relationship? Is it salvageable to me or is it not? And
Mm,
I decided that it was salvageable and that I really wanted to figure out what was going on because I felt that I was so fucked up that I could probably figure out through that relationship why I was like that, and why things were all like that. And for me, it really worked out because, as time has gone on, we've become really close through working together, reclaiming identities through culture and language. And that was one thing that really brought us closer together, was reclaiming those things that were taken from him when he was younger and taken from his parents, and so on and so on, through colonialism. And so that for me was a big thing. And now, because of that, I also work with other community members who also experienced day school, who went through the day school system, and working with them, but intergenerationally, with their children and their children's children. So like, we have events that go on that focus on intergenerational healing, because through my experiences, I was like, well, this is working for me. Like, this has changed my life. This has changed my dad's life. This has changed my family's life. And I will note that not all of my siblings are the same as me. One of my siblings has chosen to have no relationship with my father. My younger brother has a decent relationship with my father. And we've had discussions about that. My older brother and I, gosh, like maybe a couple months ago, had a conversation about how he felt about me having such a close relationship with my dad. And, you know, a lot of my life revolving around like my personal and my work, the career work that I do, revolves so much around my dad, and how that makes him feel, and how it makes him feel that, like, you know, I invalidate his experience. So we had a conversation about how, like, no, like, I understand why you don't talk to him, and that is your decision. And I've had conversations with other people about how, like, that's okay. You don't have to have a relationship, like exactly what Lavender said. Whatever works for you. However you feel you need to survive and live and have a peaceful life, that's how you do it. And if that means cutting someone off, there's nothing wrong with that. They say you need to, like, I've seen it so many places, like they say you need to forgive people to heal. You don't actually have to forgive anyone to heal. I have people who have been in my past that I will never forgive for what they've done to me, and I don't have to, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and that doesn't make you a petty person. Like, you know, sometimes I'll joke about it making me a petty person, making me like a hater or whatever, but it's not. It's literally you surviving how you have to, and some people don't deserve to be in your space. And yeah, so I had that conversation with my brother about how, like, no, we can have completely different ways, and I don't talk to you about what we do anymore because I know it hurts you. And we just don't have those conversations anymore about those things, and we have a great relationship. But for me, having that intergenerational, seeing where it all comes from, because I'm one of those people, like, even with my language work, seeing the roots of words and things like that, like where things are coming from, is really important to me, and it really validates how I feel, and it makes me understand, and it makes me happier to see things progress, and how, you know, working together makes it makes me, it heals me in a different way than, you know, other people who don't need that. So yeah, that for me is a lot of my work is intergenerational healing. And so yeah, for me that's worked, and I found it very effective for me. So if that is a possibility for you, then that's something that people want to explore. I think that it's a really great way of being able to heal that part of yourself. So that's how I work on myself.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Ashley, like, I really want to also get your opinion on this as well, because I think, you know, we've had a lot of conversations about not talking to certain family members, and like I've had conversations with Devon where I was like, I don't know what to do about my dad. You talk to your dad. How did you get to that point? Lavender's gotten plenty of text messages from me being like, "Whoo, BPDing today."
Yes.
But Ashley, I really want to talk to you about it, because I think, especially being Caribbean, we have this, your family comes first. And no matter what your family does to you, you don't you don't throw them away, you don't cut them off, you don't. And so when you do, there's also like not even just this like feeling of like guilt as like, oh, that's my parent, but there's like a cultural guilt. There's like a huge cultural guilt being Caribbean around your family. And so I'd really love to get your opinion on this, excuse me, as well.
I'm probably gonna get in trouble for being on a podcast talking about my family business to start with. So that should tell you what that relationship is all about. Um, yeah, I mean, I had a therapist in 2018, and I was sort of feeling friction with her. I didn't know you could break up with therapists. Like there was stuff she was saying that I was like, I'm not really vibing with that. And I was first drawn to her because, she was an older Jamaican lady, and I was like, okay, there's certain things I won't have to explain to her. Um, but through the theme throughout our sessions was how badly my family was treating me. And I remember saying to her, I reach out to my mom again, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I like that no matter what happens, you always go back to them. And I told a friend, and she's like, your therapist should not be saying that to you about people who are abusing you.
Absolutely
You should
not.
not be going back to these people. Like I didn't heed the message because I still kept going back. But I was like, yeah, my therapist gave me horrible advice rooted in her Jamaican, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, that you go back to your family no matter what. And I was like, yeah, I actually I can't see her anymore. I found a new therapist. We vibe a lot better. But even with my new therapist, I feel like I'm doing so much work, and my parents are still who they are. And it's like I'm able to see them with compassion, like, you were raised by a single mom, and you were raised by your grandparents, and you felt this and you felt that, and I empathize, I sympathize, I see. My your shoes are on my feet. I'm walking, I understand, and they cannot, to save their lives, look at things the way I see things.
Mm.
And it got to the point where I like Shanice, I had to cut my mom off. I proposed to my partner in 2022, and my mom couldn't even say congratulations. And I was like, this is not tenable. Like, she's like, I already told you I wouldn't be coming to your wedding, none of that. And I was like, this can't continue. I came out to you guys in 2011, and your stance has not changed in over a decade. And it's just been me fighting, fighting, fighting to be respected by people who have told me straight up, I don't have to love you unconditionally. And it's like, but that's what a parent does. Just I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not breaking any laws. I got compared to rapists, I got compared to pedophiles, whatever. But Jesus says forgive, right? Like I was also reading, like, the concept of like forgiveness is a deeply Christian concept. And it's like, turn the other cheek, forgive, 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 or you're going to hell. And it's like, at what point are you just like, enough? You need
Mm.
to be responsible for your behavior. I can't be responsible for absolving you of your nonsense for over a decade. So yeah, I cut my mom off, and she wasn't really pleased with me about it. And it's been a few years, and she's still not pleased, and I still miss her, and she's getting up there in age, and I'm like, anything could happen. One of us could go, and this will be unresolved forever, and that keeps me up at night. But the peace that I'm getting from not being disrespected,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's worth it, but, like, because I'm definitely like looking at the phone. Should I call her? Should I text her? This is funny. I want to send it to her. But at the same time, like, I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not.
And I think that's a big thing, Ashley. Like I really want to get into that because I think when we think about breaking generational curses, right? Oftentimes when we are forced to stay within them, we have to be somebody that we're not. We have to pretend like we're okay. We have to pretend like we're not hurting. And the reality is we're sacrificing ourselves. Like I think one of the things that I can say I'm so proud of, like all of us in different ways, is that we've prioritized ourselves, and that in itself is breaking a generational curse, right? And it's not easy and it's hard, and like, you know, listen, me and Ashley have had deep talks about this, the amount of guilt that comes with even not talking to your family. Like because you love them, right? And I think that's the hard thing, is like that unconditional love is like we give it to our family when they can't give it to us. And that's hard sometimes, and it hurts and it sucks. And you're sitting there being like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And
I
and it
think
creates this like anger. Yeah.
I think the four of us on this panel, we are probably the first women in our families, not to misgender anybody. I'm not technically a woman
Mm-hmm.
either, but we're the first women in our families to pick ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
to be like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna wait till I'm more healed till I have kids. I'm not gonna hate my kids. I'm not gonna force my kids to pray to something they don't believe in. I'm not gonna shun them. You know, I'm not gonna be like, I didn't raise you like this unless you're doing something heinous.
Yeah, I think about the things that I used to like have friction with my parents over. Um and it's just so insignificant.
Silly.
Like I think about like me being like a elder goth and wanting to go to Hot Topic and wear that and listen to Corn and things that are so small and just unimportant, and it was like the world was ending. Or you know, when I told my family I was queer, like things that just would not matter at all to me. um and I know that those are things that are like really important to you when you're at that age, when you're hitting puberty and you're becoming who you are and you're developing your likes and your dislikes. And so knowing that I can be who I want to be, and I can change a hobby, and I can, you know, date who I want
Mm-hmm.
and be with who I want. Like Ashley said, like, you know, I cut my mom off. My mom has pancreatic cancer right now, and I still have to decide to not reach out to her, despite the fact that I want to. It's just in my best interest that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that, you know, she's going to likely leave this earth without us ever reconnecting or talking, it does hurt. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that that should tell the people in my life and the people around me how serious I am about no longer being the family scapegoat anymore
Mm-hmm.
for all of the drama, all of the pain the people wanted to take out on me, being the I'm also the youngest in my family. um all of those things really kind of show me that, you know, I need to be making these decisions for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I um had health issues when I was a child, and it kind of, the prognosis was that I was not going to be able to really exist alone. I was going to have, my parents were going to need to take care of me. I wasn't going to go to college, go get a job. I was going to need to be cared for my entire life. And I think maybe like my family expected things to go a specific way for me, and then me having that autonomy and wanting those things made it harder for them to kind of accept that and accept this is a person. Yeah, we heard these things about what the future would be like for them, but they've broken every single one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point, you know, do we let them go and do what they need to do? I think it was easier for my family to kind of clip my wings and
Mm-hmm.
judge every little thing that I wanted to do because they didn't think that I could do it or they didn't want me to do it. And knowing that I can make those decisions for myself, if I want to quit my job and become a YouTuber full time or do something even equally as crazy, join the circus, whatever, I can do that. And being able to really have free will and use it the way I want to, it does make the lonely days a little bit easier because I again think about what day to day would be like with these people in my life closely. And you guys talk about the guilt, and that's something even as a not Caribbean person, I think Black people in general were taught to, I think people of color are taught to kind of keep their family close because of the things that we experience in our communities. Like, you know, your family's all you've got, and that's what I heard a lot. And it's like, well, it ain't much then. I don't have shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I would, you know, I've stayed in bad relationships because I didn't want to have to go home. So it's like, you know, when you're at that stage, I think moving on and prioritizing yourself becomes easier because you've already hit rock bottom. If you're someone that has parents who are alive and you can connect with them and you would rather stay somewhere where you're being harmed than to reach out to them, that's
It tells you
significant.
something. It tells you something.
Yes.
Definitely. My grandmother's always like, when I was dealing with abuse in the home growing up, like, why didn't I come to live with her? And I was like, it,
Yes, ma'am.
it wasn't giving another safe. First of all, I wasn't trying to go from like that to a very Caribbean, like semi-Caribbean to very Caribbean household of like
Yeah.
how I would my grandmother's very old school. Like there would have been no I would have had no life. I
Yeah.
would have
No, I
been
get that.
home Bible study. It would have been there would have been nothing. But what I really want to ask is like, okay, Devon, you're someone we've had conversations about how we've internalized some of this harm. And you talked a bit about it, about you becoming like a person that you didn't recognize, that wasn't you, that you didn't like. We've talked about this. Like, I too was like, there was a period of time in my life where like I wasn't a person that I liked. And so I want to ask, like, how did you recognize in that moment that you were like, oh, okay, I need to make this change for me, right? Because I think what's something that's really beautiful with like Devon's dad is Devon's dad took the time to like make the change, which I think is super beautiful, and like that's why y'all have the relationship that y'all have today. But I think like what was it for you that made you want to step on that? Because it's one thing for your dad who's been through so much trauma, Indian day school, all of the things that came with that, to want to make that change. Not to say that like you wouldn't want to make that change, but I feel like there's less of that push because it was like the harm that was coming out of your dad was very, very physical, very visceral, very like him and everyone around him. Whereas like it might have been harder for you to recognize how you were internalizing that. So what made you realize that you had to make that change, and like how did it feel when you made that change?
I kind of was like, I actually was kind of forced into it. Because so when I went to university, I was like free from my home because my home was the place that was so unsafe for me and my brothers when we were younger. Um, and we talk about too, like Ashleigh was talking about how like you're gonna get in trouble being on talking about your stuff. Mine is less getting in trouble being talking about stuff, but like I would never tell my dad. Like my mom obviously knows that I'm talking. She doesn't know what we're talking about, but because she's taking care of my child right now. But I'll never show them this because one thing is that I feel so guilty bringing it up again, even though
Mm-hmm.
it is such a big part of my life and a big part of who I am and a big part of my journey. What happened? I don't like reliving it with them, like I don't want to talk about it with my dad anymore because I've seen such change and I've seen such a difference. And my mom, I'm more open to talking about it because she was more like the victim of a lot of the things that happened. But yeah, so there's that part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was kind of forced into it because when I went to university I was kind of free, so I started doing everything that was when I was in high school. I was a very like good kid. I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. I was always, my parents always knew where I was. Like on ditch day, I told them that I was ditching school because I didn't want them to worry about me. I didn't want the school to call them and have them be like, where the hell is my kid? I did go out with my friends. Like as I said, I lived in Japan, so things were a little bit different. Like I was going to clubs when I was like 17, but I wasn't drinking. I was just out with my friends all night and stuff. And but that was also part of it, just like being like not, I wasn't like a focus and when I was younger because there was so much going on that it was like, everyone was kind of in for themselves. So when I went to university, it was just kind of like I just went nuts and I started drinking. I started doing like a bunch of stuff that I wasn't supposed to. But I didn't realize that a lot of the destructive behaviors that I was doing was mental health related. I thought I was just, being an idiot, early 20s. And so it got to the point though when I got into an abusive relationship, because also one of those cycles was being in abusive relationships. My mom was in a lot of abusive relationships. My family was a big abusive relationship. So that was the model I had. And so like I remember even having conversations with my friends when I was 18. I had a conversation with my friend about how I believed, and I still can't, looking back on it now, I'm like, how did I ever think this was a thing? But I thought it was okay to hit a person in a relationship if you were mad at them. And I was like, yeah. And my friend was like, oh my God, like Devon, no. Devon, that is not okay. You do not hit and you do not get hit. That is not okay to do. And like, it wasn't even thinking of it as like an abusive thing. It was just more of like, I'm going to slap you if you're like pissing me off. Like if you're getting too in my face, I'm going to slap you. And like, no, that's not a thing. So a lot of the things that I believed in relationships were not true and not good and not healthy. So, but I was learning. And so I got into a really stupid relationship because, all young relationships for the most part are kind of stupid. So I got in a relationship with a guy who, we were on and off a lot, and like there was cheating on his side. I found out later, which is like super offensive. And then but yeah, he never physically abused me though. So that to me was not enough. There was nothing that he could do besides physical abuse that would make me believe that I was in an abusive relationship, because that was the threshold for me. I was like, if you hit me, I'm done. But I didn't think about the things of like how like emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all of these different things. And like I was no saint. I wasn't doing good things either because that's what I had learned when I was younger. So it got to a point where in another relationship I was in, I was finally going to therapy because I had been assaulted in university. And going back after a break of a year, I was advised that I should see a therapist to continue going to classes, because I had stopped going to one class because I didn't want to be anywhere near the person who assaulted me. So I was in those therapy sessions and I was noticing things about myself that I thought were kind of normal, that were not normal. That were not good. I was lashing out a lot. I went on medication for like a couple weeks and then I would stop because I didn't like how I felt and I didn't believe it was working, and all these different things. So but it got to a point, I realize now looking back, and I had started to realize where I had no friends left. All my friends, I had treated them terribly, and I felt like they owed me something because I felt like everyone owed me something. I was like, I've gone through all this shit in my whole life, and people need to show me grace. And I was so hard on that, where I was just like, I can be however I want, and you have to accept it, and you have to treat me a type of way because I went through so much, completely not even thinking about other people and what other people could have gone through. So started losing friends. And with losing friends, I was stuck in an abusive relationship where I didn't really know anybody, who was not friends with my partner, who was not associated with him, who wasn't in his family, who wasn't his close circle of friends. So I started to have even more amplified mental health issues, because I also wasn't really talking to my family at the time. So it got to a point where something happened in my home with my partner, where I went through a period of psychosis. And so I ended up with my therapist talking about it. And she was like, Devon, if that happens again, I have to put you in inpatient care. And that to me was the literal spark of like, oh my God, this is not good. Something has to change, because like, I can't be this person anymore. I can't be this person who is like out of control, who is going to therapy and has a therapist tell me like, I'm going to put you in inpatient care if you do something like that again. I can't. Like, she had to, like, it was a thing that, like, you know, they have no choice. Yep. So that was the real catalyst, was that I basically had no choice but to change. And it was either that I change or I get even worse. And I didn't want to get even worse. And at this point, I'm sure like a lot of other people, and like maybe other people, like maybe you guys here have experiences too, where you get so comfortable with feeling fucked up and sad that any sort of change, you're like, no, I like how I am. I like feeling like this, even though I know it's not normal. The chaos feels good to me. The chaos feels normal. I'm so comfortable with this. I don't know who I can be outside of this, because I've been like this for, you know, like I was like this in my childhood, but the chaos was contained to my home. And now that I'm on my own, the chaos is me. And it was just sort of like, I had to let go of that feeling of like, I was like, no, actually, this chaos is not comfortable. I don't like it. I don't like feeling like this. So it was kind of training myself to not enjoy, which sounds really weird, but like it was training myself to not enjoy feeling that way and not anticipating that I should feel that way. So after that, it took a lot of self-reflection and figuring things out of how can I fix this for myself? And part of that was getting out of that relationship. And then I moved across the country in a whole other relationship. And while that one wasn't perfect, that one really did start to teach me how I was supposed to be treated, more so. And then from that, after we parted ways, from that, I started to really, you know, slowly get myself out of it and figuring out what I needed to do for myself to become a person that I liked.
I feel like my story is so similar to yours. Like for me, it was something that I think was so interesting, because I too was in an abusive relationship. And what ended up happening is I was able, and this is something that I still struggle with, where I'm able to see everyone else's intergenerational trauma, but not my own. And so I can rationalize. What I was doing is I was rationalizing how poorly everyone else was treating me. And so I was like, oh, I'm in an abusive relationship. Well, my ex's, you know, mom dealt with a lot of stuff, and her mom had taken her life and was in and out of, her dad was in and out of prison and residential school and all of this stuff. And so, like, it's okay that he beats me because, you know, he just wasn't taught how to be loved. And, like, you know, my grandma had to immigrate to Canada and was treated horribly as a dark-skinned black woman with an accent. And so, like, of course she's angry at the world, because, like, who wouldn't be? And, like, my dad got left behind in Trinidad, and, like, so of course he feels abandonment. And so it was just like I was like rationalizing everyone else's intergenerational trauma. I was like, it's okay that you treat me this way. And so what ended up happening is I started to internalize it so much, like, okay, well, it's okay that you treat me this way, because also I deserve it. I deserve to be treated this way. It's okay if I'm treated poorly. And so what ended up happening is I ended up having a drug addiction, and like was so deep in my depression. At the time I didn't know it was BPD because I hadn't been diagnosed yet. And like also the therapist, every therapist that I talked to was like, "You're so self-aware. That's so great." And I was like, I know I'm self-aware, but like I'm losing it. Like I'm self-aware that I'm losing it. Like I need y'all, I need y'all to help me. And so it was like here I was refusing to get on medication also because I was like, I didn't like how I tried it once when I was 18, didn't like how it made me feel. And so here I am with this drug addiction and I'm drinking all of the time and I'm angry at the world and I'm like messing up my life and I'm entering into relationships with people who are just treating me horribly. And honestly, it was the drug addiction and nothing hardcore, y'all. Like I wasn't, no disrespect to any of my crack smokers, but like I was not doing crack or anything like that. I just want to make it clear. It was nothing hardcore. But like, because I don't want to shame anybody who's struggling with drug addictions, but like that wasn't me.
You just had to. You have to make like
I had to make it clear. I had to make it clear. We're black, y'all. I don't want y'all to think I was out here doing the crack.
Yeah, hey.
But like, so, but I was dealing with like struggling a lot. And so, but it was the drug addiction that I was like, girl, because I was very anti-drugs. Like when I tell you, other than smoking weed, I was like, I remember one of my really good friends had done like E for the first time, and I didn't talk to her for 3 months. I was like, how could you? Like, I was so because I had
That's how I used to be about weed.
About weed, but I had a friend whose mom got addicted to crack, and so like for me, it was like, and she started by doing coke, and it built into crack, and so I was like, for me, I was like, drugs, no. And then when I found myself sitting there doing, I was like, girl, you need to get it together. And so I went on medication and I started having honest conversations and I started putting up barriers and I started doing therapy and I started doing the work. And like now I mean, I'm not doing the drugs, but like I still have a little drink. I still have a little good time, but I'm healthy now. Like I'm not dependent on alcohol to get through my day, to get through my emotions. I'm like on medication and I'm happy and I'm in a happy relationship with someone who loves me and like creates space for me. And so like that's the other thing that as we move into the end of this, and I really want to hear folks' thoughts on like what is something that you're really happy about in breaking your generational curse? Because for me, I'm really happy that I'm in a healthy relationship. I'm happy that I have a home. I've lived in 27 different houses in my lifetime. I've moved 6 times by the time I was 12. And so I have a permanent home. Like for me, that is, that's breaking a generational curse, right? Like I feel secure for the first time in my life. I don't feel like I have to stay in my room. Where like I something that I noticed with my family is like we build spaces to feel safe in. So my mom had her craft room, my grandma had her paint room. Like we had small spaces to feel safe in, and like for me it's like my whole home feels safe now. And that's amazing to me. So like as much as we've all been like for this last hour talking about all the hard stuff, there's also like so much hope in it. Like I don't want people to be like, "Oh, yeah, generational curses, it never gets better." No, because it does. And you do break it and you do create space and you do create peace. So like as we're ending this, I'd like each of you to share like what's something that you're really happy about? What's the peace that's come out of breaking generational curses? Like what is making you live? What's making you thrive, not just survive?
I can go. Sometimes I think about how I'm the first person in my bloodline probably to go to therapy
Mm.
and get a mental health diagnosis and take medication and, you know, delay having kids should I have them. Like, I think every woman before me has had kids by the time they've hit 31. I'm 31. And so having that choice, being like, I need to be a bit more healed, I need to be a bit more financially stable, um, before I make that choice. And then just, being the adult that I needed as a little queer kid who didn't
Mm.
know they were queer, being there for my cousins who were one of my cousins came out to her mom and was like, "Well, I'm not the first lesbian." I'm like, "Girl, who is the first lesbian?" She's like, "You." So being there for my little cousins, be it like with their queerness or with their just little black weird kids, like being the black weird auntie. Um, I really pride myself on how I'm helping the next generation come up and feel less ostracized by the family, by society, everything.
I love that.
I think for me, the best part of it about it is that I did really kind of round out my personality after, I removed myself from the lives of my family members, and I got to really explore different hobbies, things that, wouldn't have been valued, appreciated, or given any time.
Mm,
Um, Things that I may have been scared to try because of what judgments would have come. Um, all of those things just have made me have more confidence in myself. I'm also in a healthy relationship now that, I don't think that I would have been able to really entertain or like deal with how peaceful it is, because I would have wanted that chaoticness from the past relationships that I've had and from my home life. So being able to really be in love and with someone that makes it very obvious that every day that he is in love with me and we are working towards a future together, and it not be something that feels so dark at times, because a lot of my relationships felt very dark. um just being able to have that and have a relationship that I don't argue in, and be myself every day, that is what made everything that I've experienced worth it.
I love that.
I think you know.
I
So
do.
talk about delaying parenthood. Like you said, Ashleigh, I did that. I delayed parenthood. I had decided in my early 30s that I am not always my healthiest when I'm in relationships because I seek out chaos in the relationships. That's one thing that I still haven't been able to totally figure out yet for myself. And maybe one day I will, and that's totally great if it
Wait,
if it
so
happens, if
are
it
you not
doesn't
in your
happen.
20s?
Sorry?
Are you not in your 20s?
No, man, I'm like 37.
Oh, we're close
I'm
in
like
age, yeah.
old. Um, but yeah, so that was something that I delayed, and I had decided in my early 30s that I wanted to be a single mother if the opportunity for a partnered relationship with a child never happened. And so now I am a single mom. I have a 5-month-old. I just had her, and she is beautiful and she is wonderful and she smiles so much, and I feel like I can be a healthy parent who can make responsible decisions. I've been going to this parenting class for the past 2 weeks. It's until the end of December, and it's about it's called like um positive discipline in everyday parenting. And so far, it has made me feel so confident because I'm surrounded by other parents who just want to do better. And I know that when I first started it, last week, I was like, I kind of judged myself, feeling like, oh, by going to this, does this make me look like I could potentially be a bad parent or whatever? But I don't know what I don't know. I know that, I was raised by people. Like I do love my parents. And they weren't always good partners to each other, but a lot of the time, they tried their best to be good parents despite what was going on in the home. And that I do have to give to my parents. And that is why I was able to salvage a relationship with my dad, was because I knew he was trying. Um, and so I don't know what I don't know. And I'm grateful that I'm able to be aware that, like, I want to raise her the best way I can. I want to raise her in culture. I want to raise her with language. I want to raise her with community. And I'm very grateful that I have that and that I waited. Um, I mean, not everyone has that opportunity because things happen. I got pregnant when I was 20, I lost it, but I was almost a parent when I was much younger and unhealed. I mean, I'm still not totally healed, but so I think about what kind of parent I would have been to that child, and it definitely wouldn't have been the parent that I am now. And I'm so grateful that I can do that for her, and that she's going to be raised that way, and that sometimes I just look at her and I see how happy she is, and I'm like, I want this for you. I want you to be, I know that I can't be perfect, and I know that the world isn't perfect, but I want you to feel so safe with me and in our house, and that I can give her that opportunity, that I didn't have, feeling safe in my home. That for me is, the biggest blessing out of all of this, is that I was able to create that self-awareness in myself, that, I can do this, and that I can give someone a good life. And hearing from you guys, I think you guys all can too. I think that you guys will be great parents if and so when you choose to be. Because if we're doing the work, we're not going to be perfect. But yeah, it's the greatest thing ever.
I love that so much. And it's honestly been amazing to watch you be a mom, and like how much joy it brings to you, and like seeing that little smiling face. I'm just like, oh, I love my kids. But I just want to say, as we're ending this, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being vulnerable in this space, because this isn't easy. This isn't an easy topic. And I just really appreciate everything that you shared. And I think that we're all like being the people that we needed when we were younger. I think we're all, being the people that other people need. All of us, I've like seen all of us, show light and share light into other people's lives. And I don't think we would be able to do that if we hadn't have started the work that we've started. And it's really important for folks that are like watching and listening to remember that this is a journey, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Like all of us have talked about, like this has been ongoing. This is stuff that has started when we were younger. I know we all look like we're in our 20s, but we're, the 30 gang over here. But yeah, it's like it's a journey, and you're going to get there, and like don't give up on yourself. I think that's a really important thing. Sometimes you have to give up on others because they're not fighting for themselves. But the one thing that I always want to remind folks to do is like never give up on yourself. You are always worth the work. You are always worth the unconditional love. You are always worth the future that you want, and never give up on that. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you for joining, my lovelies. Mwah. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. Everybody who's listening out there, I really appreciate you. Bye.